Today in this video I am going to show you how to detail strip an FNP-45 tactical. Most everything I can find online shows you how to field strip this. I'm actually going to show you how to detail strip this. The reason for me detail stripping mine, I've already done this but I'm going to show you guys how to do it, was I have one of the earlier models where the trigger pin, this pin that holds the trigger bars on the trigger, is not staked in place and it moves side to side. You can see right now that it's not all the way on that side of the trigger bar, and on this side it's sticking up, and basically it'll work its way loose back and forth, and then if it works too far off the one way it'll actually jam up the trigger. So I emailed FNH and told them and sent them a picture and gave my serial number, and they sent me a new trigger assembly because the new pin is staked in place, and they also sent me a new set of safety or decocking handles, which you may or may not need depending on how careful you are. So we'll go ahead and take this down. It is empty. You want to pull the slide back, engage the slide release, flip the takedown lever down, release the slide release, pull the slide off, take the slide down. You need to take your threaded protector off the barrel. If you have an O-ring on here like I do, to keep the threaded protector tight, you'll need to take that off. Take your recoil spring assembly out, push your barrel up, and that's out. That's pretty much your field strip. And a detail strip to slide, I'm not going to go all the way into detail stripping because it involves removing the rear sight, which I don't really need to do. But to take the extractor out, you need probably a good sharp pick that you can push. You'll need to push this pin right here back enough that you can pull the extractor out. And it is under a lot of spring tension. And it'll come forward, pull it out, and try to slowly release the pin because it will shoot forward. Here's your spring and your pin, and there's your extractor. There's the cavity and hole that the extractor spring and plunger goes in. Now to take the firing pin out, you'll need to depress the firing pin safety right here, and then take a blunt object, press the firing pin down, push the cover down and out of the way, set it to the side, and slowly let the firing pin come up. There's your firing pin. Sometimes the spring will stick inside, and there's your spring. Put this back together, press your firing pin safety in, put your spring on the end of your firing pin, put that all the way in there. Your cover plate, kind of have to look how it goes on. The relieved sides here face out. Just push the firing pin down out of the way, maybe, and then slide that back on, let it pop up. It's in place. Put the extractor spring in first. then the plunger. To reinstall your extractor, you'll bring it forward, set it in there. I'm going to grab another pick and pull the plunger as far as you can down in there and push the extractor back until it clears the plunger and let the plunger go. And then there it is, reinstalled. Obviously putting your barrel back in, slide your barrel in, put your recoil spring assembly in there, put your ring back on there, your threaded protector. Now your slide's done. Like I said, if you do need to take the firing pin safety out, you will need to remove the rear sight, and we're not going to do that today. I'm going to move on to the frame. Detail strip the frame does take a considerable amount of time, but you have to remove the firing control group and the locking block in order to remove the trigger assembly to replace the trigger assembly. So it used to be thought on the FN forums that in order to take the firing control group out, that you had to break off the right hand side safety decocking handle in order to get this assembly out. But it's been discovered that on the bottom and on the top are two holes that you use a small sharp object like a pick that you press in order to release this off of this assembly. You can see that there's a groove on that side and a groove on that side. So in order to remove the decock handle on the right hand side, you'll rotate it down to the decock position, take your sharp object, you come in the hole and kind of press on it, and then come to the top, and the other hole is also up here, and you kind of press on it and just kind of pry it off. If you take this apart too many times, you'll wear out the springs, but F&H, when they sent me the new trigger group, will also send you the new left and right decocking safety handles. If not, they're like $5 from Midwest Gun Works. So now you have the right hand side off. You can push the left hand assembly through and pull it out, set it aside. So now you've taken the safety out, you can take the firing control group out. So you lift the whole assembly up, you kind of rotate it forward so you can pull it off the trigger bar. Here's your firing control assembly. Be very careful not to lose this assembly with this spring or these cams right here. These operate the decocking and double action, single action. If you do knock these out, they're kind of a pain to put back in, but you'll note that the orientation of the right hand or the left hand side, and the orientation of the left hand or the right hand side, in case these come apart. There's probably no reason to take the fire control group down any farther than that. I haven't found anything online how to do that. I probably wouldn't, unless for some reason you really feel adventurous. So now you have that out. Now if you look in here, the FNP series has replaceable rails, your right and your left rails, front or rear and front. These actually just pop out. They are labeled right and left. Set those aside if you want, or don't even take them out. So if you want to take the magazine release out, grab another sharp object, and it's a hooked spring. You just reach down here. Be very careful because this spring will go flying too. You kind of have to pull the one side over and pull it up. There's There's your magazine release spring. When you put it back in, you can go either side. Your magazine release will come out. So take your takedown lever down, keep it in the lower position. And there's a spring that holds tension on it. You can grab another sharp object and just on the right of it, find it and press down and pull it out. There's your takedown lever. Here's the spring assembly right here, just hooked. To get the trigger assembly out, you have to take the locking block out. To get the locking block out, you actually are going to have to spread the frame so you can take it out, because it's pinned in the left and right frame rails here. So the best thing I found to do this with was a pair of needle-nose pliers. I just kind of put them in there. And stretched them enough that it would pop up like that. And there's your locking block. And that installs this end up, not that end, this end up. Now that you have the locking block out, you can actually change out the trigger assembly. Grab a punch to punch the pin out. Punch it out from left to right, because the spring that holds the takedown lever also holds this in place with this groove. Now you can remove your slide release, your takedown spring. Now you can finally take your trigger out. Now if you do need to replace these rails, you'll need to remove this other U-shape block in there, and you'll have to spread it again and pull it out. I don't have any need to in this video, so if you want, you have to get your tool or whatever you decide and stretch it enough that you can pull them out. This one's a little harder to get out, but it can be taken out if you need to replace the rails, but you probably have a lot of miles if you need to replace these rails. So to put this back together, obviously it's the reverse of what we've just talked about. Grab your trigger assembly or your new one, slide that in there. So once you put your trigger assembly back in, take your slide release, set that in place. Your spring goes on the outside of the slide release and sits on top of it. Take your pin, put it on the left hand side here first. You want to take your spring and kind of push it down so you can get it hooked up. You have to wiggle things a little bit, push them around to get everything lined up, and push it in until it goes home. You'll hear it click in place when it loops around the spring there. And now your trigger assembly is reinstalled. Now again, for this locking block, it installs this way, up. You have to spread the frame again to get this to kind of go in there. So I kind of set the one side in there. So to insert the locking block, you need to set the one side in. If you it's kind of hard to just push on it, literally just push on it, but you should be able to come down with your needle-nose pliers enough to stretch it to lock it in there. You also need to make sure that your front U-shape is in there. You'll see these. You can see it from the outside of the rails and make sure they're all the way in there. That way, you'll know that the locking block is nice and tight. Otherwise, you've got this off a little bit, and you'll find when you go to put the slide back on that it doesn't go on because these are not all the way in. So now you've got that in. Put your magazine release back in. Goes in from either side. Just kind of set it in the middle there. and then grab your spring. Doesn't matter which end. You don't even have to compress it. Just grab one of the corners and you slide it down in there, and you'll get it started part way, and you can just kind of push on it and just push it down, and when it's home the bottom hooks will be in there, and then it's in there. Now you want to take your left and right rails. Like I said, they just sit right inside the polymer like that. Just like that. You now take your takedown pin and put that back in. Takedown lever. Just got to push the spring out of the way. Just push it down. And gets the other side. Just kind of push on a little bit, so and then it'll move itself back in the groove, and that's in. Now for the fire control group. As long as you didn't mess up these cams, you can insert this. Again, in case you do take these cams out, the left hand side goes in like that with this top piece riding on top of it. This moves freely. The right hand side, this sits flush with that. So now you take your fire control group and you will come in like this. Just slip it around the back of the trigger bar so it's on the inside, and then you'll just rotate it counterclockwise and bring it back. You push the whole assembly back into its slot. You'll take your left hand side safety, if I remember where it was at. Just push it home. Verify that it does lock in the top position or decocks. Verify you have proper action before putting it all back together. Then you'll take your right hand side safety lever, simply just push the two together. Now it's clipped on there. Now you can take your slide, slide it all the way back, lock your slider release, flip your takedown lever, and there you go. Complete detail strip, give or take 2 parts, but there you go. Thanks for watching.